I never thought I would become the victim of such a filthy betrayal. If someone had told me that the man I loved, the one I had trusted for so many years, would end up in bed with my own sister-in-law, I would have laughed in their face. But life is never as simple as we imagine. That night, I stumbled upon the truth in a way no wife would ever wish for. My husband was fast asleep, his phone resting on the nightstand. I was never the type to invade his privacy, but when the screen lit up with a suspicious message, my heart told me something was wrong. I can't wait any longer. Meet me at our usual hotel tonight. I'm going crazy missing you. I felt the blood in my veins freeze. The sender's name was clear as day. My sister-in-law. I couldn't believe my eyes. I blinked repeatedly, hoping this was some kind of sick joke, but those disgusting words remained on the screen. My hands trembled as I scrolled through their old messages. How long had this been going on? How did I not see it? Are you sure she doesn't suspect anything? Don't worry, she's as clueless as ever. My heart clenched. My entire world, what I once thought was peace and happiness, had been nothing but a lie. I wanted to shake him awake, slap him across the face, scream, throw things. But my rational mind told me to stay calm. I needed to know everything. I needed proof. I turned to look at my husband, the man sleeping soundly beside me, completely unaware. In that moment, I realized this man had never truly been mine. He was a liar, a traitor, and worst of all, he had trampled on my trust to chase after a filthy love. That night, I didn't sleep. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the steady breaths of the man who had betrayed me, silently vowing that he would pay for what he had done. I was no longer the weak, submissive woman who blindly trusted the man lying beside me. I would not cry or beg for love from a traitor. I would expose everything and make him and that filthy woman pay for their betrayal. The next morning, I said nothing. I acted normal. I poured his coffee as usual, smiled as he kissed me goodbye before heading to work. But deep inside, I was no longer the wife I had been yesterday. I started tracking my husband, not in the naive way of a jealous wife, but with the precision of a detective, a predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike. That afternoon, I pretended to go shopping, but in reality, I had hired a private investigator. I handed him my husband's messages and instructed him to investigate everything: his calls, financial transactions, travel history. I needed to know exactly how long this affair had been going on, what they had done, and most importantly, what other secrets they were hiding from me. While waiting for the investigator's report, I conducted my own investigation. I checked my husband's bank accounts. Suspicious transactions appeared frequently. Large sums of money had been withdrawn and transferred to an unknown account I had never seen before. But the most terrifying discovery was when I checked past transactions. These transfers had been happening for years. A chill ran down my spine. What did this mean? Had he been secretly moving our shared assets all this time? Was this never just an affair, but a carefully orchestrated plan? I continued searching his phone whenever I had the chance. This time, I wasn't just looking for meaningless, flirtatious messages. I was searching for something more important. I dug through his banking apps, personal emails, and search history. And then I found it, an email to his lawyer, buried in the deleted folder. I would like to discuss transferring all my personal assets out of our joint property. This information must remain confidential to avoid any complications later on. I could barely breathe. This man hadn't just destroyed our family with his infidelity. He had planned to discard me with nothing. I gripped the phone tightly, feeling the fury boiling inside me. I knew exactly what I needed to do next. If he thought he could ruin me without consequences, he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. I thought I had prepared myself for any disgusting truth, but what I was about to uncover was far worse. 3 days after hiring the private investigator, I received my first report. He had followed my husband and my sister-in-law, capturing clear photos of them walking into a hotel, hand in hand, their eyes filled with passion. Passion that should have been reserved for married couples. The images made me sick to my stomach. But they weren't the most devastating part. When I asked the investigator how long their affair had been going on, his answer left me frozen. At least 5 years, since before your sister-in-law's husband passed away. I stood motionless, feeling as if someone had just pushed me off a cliff. Not after my brother's death, not in a moment of grief and loneliness. No, they had been betraying him while he was still alive, still trusting his wife, still considering my husband as his beloved younger brother. Images of my brother flooded my mind. A strong, responsible man who had loved his wife wholeheartedly, who had supported her through the toughest times. And my husband, the man who had always pretended to be a good brother, who sat at our family dinners, who comforted my sister-in-law whenever my brother was away on business, was nothing but a traitor who had stabbed him in the back. I struggled to remain calm, but fury burned through my veins. I turned back to the investigator's report, flipping through every page, every text message, every financial transaction. They hadn't just betrayed me. They hadn't just betrayed my brother. They had been planning a life together, all while our family was still intact. The hotels they frequented weren't just secret rendezvous spots. They were luxury resorts, places my husband had never taken me to. The expensive gifts he claimed were for business partners had actually been for her. They had even gone on vacations together, covering their tracks with blatant lies about work trips. I dug my nails into my palm, my chest tightening with rage. I wasn't just betrayed. I had been made a fool, manipulated by years of deception. But now I saw through it all, and I wouldn't let them get away with it for another second. I no longer had time to wallow in grief or dwell on my anger. They had betrayed me, betrayed my brother, and even planned to discard me with nothing. But I would not let that happen. I started gathering everything I could. Every text message, every suspicious financial transaction, every receipt from the luxury hotels my husband had taken my sister-in-law to. All of it became evidence. I also accessed our home security cameras to review past footage. And then I found a video that made me sick to my stomach. A month before my brother's tragic accident, my husband had brought my sister-in-law to our home while I was away. They sat together on the couch, laughing like a couple in love. But what sent chills down my spine was the way they talked about my brother. He's such an idiot, always too busy taking care of his family to notice anything. My husband sneered. We have to be careful. If everything gets exposed before the plan is complete, I'll lose everything. My sister-in-law said, her eyes glinting with calculation. Plan complete. My hands trembled. They weren't just having an affair. They had been plotting something from the start. And my poor brother, did he really die in an accident? Or was it something far worse? And just like that, I uncovered the truth behind their so-called plan. The private investigator handed me a DNA test report, and the moment my eyes scanned the results, my world collapsed. The numbers on the paper blurred as my hands trembled violently. My breath hitched, my heart pounded in my chest like a war drum. 99.9% match. My husband, my own husband, was the biological father of my sister-in-law's child. I felt the air being sucked from my lungs, as if I had been punched in the gut with a force so brutal that it shattered every remaining piece of my soul. My vision darkened at the edges. I wanted to scream, to tear the report apart and pretend I had never seen it. But the truth was right there, staring at me, laughing at my ignorance. It was never just an affair. It was never just lust. It was a long-standing betrayal, a meticulously planned deception. My brother's sudden death, the massive insurance payout, the twisted, vile secret they had been hiding. It was all connected. Had they planned this from the start? Had my brother's life meant nothing more to them than a sum of money? A wave of nausea hit me as I clutched the report in my shaking hands. The man I had trusted, the man I had vowed to spend my life with, had not only betrayed me, he had destroyed my family. Rage, grief, disgust, all of it surged through me like a wildfire. My entire body burned with a fury I had never known before. They thought they had won. They thought they had buried the truth deep enough that I would never find it. But now I knew everything, and I would make sure they paid for it. Disgust crawled through my body. I knew I had to uncover the full truth. But first, I needed to destroy their plans. I needed the best lawyer in town, someone who could help me expose everything in court. I couldn't just walk away. I had to make them pay. The next morning, I contacted one of the top divorce attorneys in the city. As I placed a thick stack of documents on his desk and said, "I want to ruin him," I knew this was only the beginning of the battle. On the day of the trial, I walked into the courtroom with a terrifying sense of calm. I was no longer the betrayed, heartbroken, and weak woman I once was. Today, I was here to claim justice and strip him of everything he had. My husband sat across from me, his eyes flickering with unease as he saw my cold, emotionless demeanor. Beside him was my sister-in-law, the woman who had once been part of my family but had now become his accomplice in betrayal. They both looked confident, believing they could still manipulate the situation and deceive everyone. But they were wrong. My lawyer began by presenting evidence of his financial fraud, the secret transactions, the hidden accounts, the large sums of money siphoned from our joint assets. Every document, every number, every email was like a dagger tearing through his carefully laid out plan. Then the affair was exposed. Photos, messages, and even security footage from our own home were displayed, painting the undeniable truth. When the messages discussing the plan and being careful not to lose everything were read aloud in court, I saw my husband freeze in place. He tried to defend himself, but every lie crumbled beneath the overwhelming evidence. When the judge finally declared, "All shared assets will be awarded to the plaintiff. Full custody of the children is granted to the plaintiff," I knew I had won. He had lost everything. I looked at him one last time, not with hatred, but with sheer contempt. He was no longer worth another second of my life. The trial was over. I walked out of the courtroom with my head held high, while he kept his gaze fixed on the ground. The man who once arrogantly thought I was a fool now had nothing. No money, no dignity, no family. But that was not the worst punishment he would face. As soon as the verdict was announced, I sold our shared house, the place that had once been a home, now nothing more than a stain in my memory. My children and I moved to a new place, starting a life free from the shadow of a traitor. Meanwhile, he, with no assets and no stable job, struggled to find a temporary place to stay. My sister-in-law, who once believed she had won everything, quickly felt the harsh bite of reality. Without money and luxury, their so-called love lost its sweetness. In the days following the trial, I heard rumors that they were trying to hold their relationship together, but it wasn't long before everything began to fall apart. Gone were the extravagant hotel rendezvous and secret romantic getaways. Now, they had only each other and the consequences of their actions. They started fighting over money. My sister-in-law, once soft-spoken and loving, now lashed out at him for losing everything. The man who had once schemed to discard me was now being discarded himself. One day, I received a message from an old acquaintance. "Did you hear? Your ex-husband and your sister-in-law broke up." I wasn't surprised. A relationship built on betrayal could never have a happy ending. Not long after, he showed up at my door one late afternoon. His face was gaunt, his clothes disheveled. The man who once walked with confidence, who once thought he could toss me aside, now stood before me, a broken, regretful shell of his former self. "I'm sorry, I was wrong. I lost everything," he croaked, his voice hoarse, his eyes pleading. I crossed my arms, my expression calm, almost indifferent. "You didn't lose everything because of me. You lost everything because of yourself." Without another word, I gently closed the door, leaving him standing there, nothing but a man with empty hands and the weight of his own regret. I stood still, staring at the closed door, listening as his footsteps faded into the distance. Not a single tear fell, no more pain, no more resentment. All I felt was relief, as if I had finally escaped a nightmare that had lasted far too long. My life was no longer overshadowed by betrayal. I devoted my time to myself, to my children, and embraced a freedom I had never truly known before. No more sleepless nights wondering where my husband was. No more anxiety over secret messages or sweet, deceptive words. I worked hard, rebuilt my career, and reclaimed everything I deserved, step by step. One day, while tidying my office, I found an old photograph, a family picture taken on my birthday years ago. In it, my husband beamed with happiness, his arm wrapped tightly around my waist. My sister-in-law stood beside us, her gaze gentle. Looking at the picture, no one would have guessed that these were the very people who had driven a dagger into my back. I stared at it for a long moment before calmly tearing it in half. The past no longer had the power to hurt me. It was just a memory, and memories belong to the past. Stepping outside, I let the warm sunlight wash over me. My children's laughter filled the air, pure and joyful, wrapping around my heart like a comforting embrace. I smiled, a genuine smile, unburdened by old wounds. Perhaps he regretted everything. Perhaps he wished he could turn back time. But that no longer mattered. I had walked through the fire, endured the scars, and emerged stronger. And I would never look back, because I had won. Not through bitter revenge, but by freeing myself from the past and choosing to live the life I truly deserved. A traitor never deserves forgiveness, and I will never look back. Betrayal does not define the betrayed. It reveals the true nature of the betrayer. Trust is valuable, but it should never be given blindly. No matter how well hidden the truth is, it will always come to light. When faced with pain, we have two choices: to collapse or to rise stronger. The protagonist chose to fight, not just to reclaim what was rightfully hers, but to reaffirm her worth. Betrayers may enjoy their victory for a fleeting moment, but in the end, they will always pay the price. Forgiveness is not an obligation. It is a choice. Not everyone deserves mercy, and sometimes letting go of the past is the best form of revenge. The greatest triumph is not making the betrayer suffer, but moving forward, finding happiness, and thriving beyond what they ever imagined. This story serves as a powerful reminder that no matter the loss or betrayal we endure, we can always rise again, take control of our lives, and rediscover true happiness. If you enjoy deep, emotional, and meaningful stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new update. Your support is the motivation that drives us to keep bringing you powerful stories. Once again, thank you for being here, and see you in the next story.